All right, guys, this is a standard size aircraft tire. And this guy is an oversized Tundra tire. Now this is a 29-inch bush wheel. About $250 and about $1,500. Is it really worth it? I'm Trent Palmer. I fly drones for a living and bush planes for fun. Follow along as I journey off the beaten path of aviation. What's up, guys? Trent Palmer again, coming to you from my office. Unfortunately, the weather as well as work has kind of kept me out of the air, so I'm kind of going through flying withdrawals. I was able to get in the air a little bit yesterday just for a short little hop. Didn't bring any cameras or anything, but when I was on the ground at the airport, someone came up to me and they did say something along the lines of, "Those are some pretty big tires you have there. Are those really necessary?" And it brought up a good point, and I figured I should make a video about that. So like you saw in my little intro, I'm showing you the difference between a standard aircraft tire and Alaskan Bushwheels. And the big thing that people take into account, and probably the biggest factor, is the cost. A bushwheel, in comparison to a standard size tire, is about 6 times the cost. And that cost is kind of hard for a lot of people to swallow, and for good reason. The Bushwheels, or at least the Airframe's Alaska Bushwheel, is made of a softer compound than your standard tire. And it's made that way so that it'll roll over rough terrain such as rocks or gopher holes and be more malleable. And it also can be ran at a lower pressure, so it has better flotation. The downside to that is the fact that it wears out significantly faster on pavement. So when you're flying on bush wheels, it's something like, I want to say $15 or $20 per pavement landing when you're landing these things on pavement. So when you start factoring in numbers like that, you got to wonder, are they really worth it? Do you really need that big of tires? And you know, it's really going to come down to your demands and what kind of flying you're doing and how much time you're spending off of some sort of runway surface, even if it's a dirt or grass surface. Once you start getting away from that into the kind of unknown area, that's when bush wheels are worth it, in my opinion. Another common question I get is, how many places do I go that I truly need bush wheels versus something like an 850 sized Tundra tire that would be an oversized tire? The common question is, how many places do you really go that I couldn't go on 850s? And the answer to that is very few. Most of the time, the places I'm going, I like to go where it's smooth. I mean, if you're looking for a new place to land, you're gonna find the smoothest place you can go. But the bush wheels are really there for that other, let's say 5% of the time. The 5% of the time that you are landing and you know that there's rocks there or there's ditches there that hopefully are within the size range that your bush wheels can handle, but not too big that you're going to be damaging your aircraft. And again, even some of those spots that I would kind of consider bush wheel only spots, a lot of them you probably could go on 850s. However, you'd just be pushing it and you're running out of any sort of headroom or room for error. And so bush wheels, to me, when it comes down to it, they're just insurance. What they do is they help protect your airframe on rough terrain, and also they help protect you in the event that you hit something that you didn't see, such as a gopher hole or a rock. Because something like, say, a 6 to 8 inch rock would be a full-blown wheel chock for a standard size tire. Bush wheels, however, when they're aired down to the pressure that we run them at, they'll roll right over something like that. I mean, you'll feel it, but it's going to be the difference between bending up your airplane and not bending up your airplane. And one big thing that I think is very important, and what makes bush wheels such a good investment into any airplane that you're going to be doing any off-field operations in, is the fact that it extends your runway. You could be going somewhere that, say, has 500 feet of really nice, smooth stuff, but once you get to the far end of that, it kind of gets crappy. There's rocks and there's some bushes. Well, with bush wheels, oftentimes that will allow you to use that as an overrun, and if you needed to, you can extend your runway. So just by adding the bush wheels, you've now made your airplane more capable of landing areas, because what you considered a usable runway before is now extended into a much larger area. So the big defining factor to me when I talk about bush wheels versus, say, a 850, I would just say, how much of your flying are you doing off pavement first part? Because if you're doing a lot of pavement landings, then it's probably not going to be worth running bush wheels, because they are so expensive and they do wear out so fast. And the other thing is, when you're off pavement, are you landing at grass and dirt strips, or are you just out kind of prospecting, trying to find new places to land? Because if you're out prospecting and doing what I would consider more of bush flying versus backcountry flying, I would say, if you're going to long grass and dirt strips in the Idaho backcountry, that's backcountry flying. Bush flying to me is when you're landing places that there is absolutely no designated airstrip or runway, and they're actually places that you're finding on your own. So for bush flying, I think bush wheels are very important and they're great to have. If you're just doing backcountry stuff, I would say 850s for the most part are going to be fine. Now, is $1,500 really worth it any way you slice it? Well, before I start that, I should mention this is not the most expensive bush wheel. This is actually an Alaskan Bushwheel Airstreak. So it's their kind of light sport tire. It's not the smallest, but not the biggest. And it's not even a traditional bush wheel. The traditional bush wheel would be a 31-inch bush wheel, which is even more expensive. And then if you get up into the 35-inch tires, those guys are like $2,000 per tire. So this one, although it is expensive, to me, it's worth the value in what it does in protecting my aircraft, as well as giving me that little blanket or safety layer of the unknown. Now, the big difference is with a bush wheel versus a standard tire is, if you look at this standard, this is actually the oversized Tundra tire. I think it even says Tundra on it somewhere. It says Tundra. But this is a tube tire setup. You run a tube inside the tire. And what that means is you have to run a certain amount of pressure to keep this bead seated on the rim really well. And if you were to lower the tire pressure, say to help you with flotation in some sort of soft, sandy, or muddy environment, what happens a lot of the times is when you land and your wheels are stopped, or if you touch the brakes, your tire will stay stopped and your wheel spins, or I guess vice versa. But basically what happens is you'll end up spinning the tire on the rim, shearing your valve stem, now you got a flat tire and you're stuck out in the bush. Now, one of the cool things about the Alaskan Bushwheels is they have an integrated tire tube. So if you look on the inside of this thing, it is literally just one gigantic tube that's built robustly on the outside. The valve stem's on the side of the tire, so there's no tube going through anything at all. If you were to run this thing at 0 PSI and land with your brakes fully locked, it will spin on the rim, but it's not going to shear a valve stem or puncture the tire. And the other thing with these tires, the Bushwheels, they are Kevlar lined. So they're actually a very strong tire, but they use a very soft compound. So what that means is when you run these things at a lower PSI, like you should in the bush, they can be almost a suspension layer for your airplane. They truly do protect the airplane. You end up with so much sidewall that's so soft that allows you to roll over things and float on top of things. I would say the feel of these things is something that you'd actually have to ride in a plane to understand. It's really incredible what they do to the landing performance of your aircraft. You really can just smack down and the tires absorb most of the impact. With the flex in the sidewall, tailwheel airplane isn't as likely to be grabby and try to ground loop on you. So when you're landing with bush wheels out, say in sort of soft-ish sand or on like grass or something, I would say these make your airplane like 1,000,000 times easier to land versus one of the harder tires on pavement. Now also, because of the fact that it's an integrated tube tire, the Bushwheel will allow you to run such low tire pressures, you would be blown away at the flotation you get out of these. So if you are operating on, say, softer dirt, which is like mud or sand, or even on rough rocks, dropping your tire pressure down to, say, 4 PSI is a pretty common number for bush wheels, allows you to roll over and float on whatever the terrain is. One thing that blew me away when I first got bush wheels and lowered the tire pressure to that appropriate 4 to 6 pound range, I found that my wheel chocks were no longer useful. You could push the plane right over them. Because they're so soft, the tire just kind of bends and molds over it. And it does the same thing when you're out in the rocks. So that's another big thing. Having the low tire pressure of the bush wheels, which some of its competitors don't have that integrated tube tire design, so you can't go quite as low pressure. That's one of the huge benefits of the Bushwheel and one of the features that I think really set it apart from its competitors. Now, another big plus with the Bushwheels is that it actually raises the nose of your airplane, so it gets your prop farther out of the way of danger, and it also helps your angle of attack. So for most standard tailwheel aircraft, how they sit in a 3-point angle is not all the way at their critical angle of attack. My airplane included on the extended gear and Bushwheels, I'm still not at the angle of attack that is the slowest I can get my plane at full stall. So what that means is when you're at a lower than critical angle of attack for takeoff, you're going to end up dragging your tailwheel trying to rotate, or you're not going to be able to utilize your wing as effectively as you could if you could get that nose up higher using extended gear and bush wheels. So one of the benefits of the bush wheels is just getting that nose higher for the angle of attack, as well as the getting your prop out of the way. And these tires with the softer compound give a better ability to roll over rough terrain and absorb impacts, and what it ends up doing is protecting your airframe, which I think is a pretty valuable thing as well. So going back to my question of how many places do you go that you really need bush wheels? Well, I'll try to throw up some examples. This place here, I would say that is a bush wheel only location. Something like this, however, no, you can get in there with 850s and maybe even smaller tires. Bush wheels only, small tire friendly. So to sum this up, guys, are bush wheels worth it? To me, they are. The type of flying I'm doing and where I'm landing, it's just to have that safety blanket and that protection to my aircraft, as well as the extra angle of attack and being able to roll over things I haven't seen. That is all extremely valuable to me, even though it does cost more when I go land on pavement at home. To me, it allows me to go and land so many other places that I couldn't without them. Also, I'd like to throw in the event of emergency, like such as an engine out, I've got a lot more options as far as landing places and hoping that my tires are going to protect me and allow me to roll over whatever it is that's in front of me versus having small little standard tires. So I don't know how valuable that is in the big scheme of things, but maybe that's just a little something to help me justify it in my head why I spent so much dang money on these tires. All right, guys, I'm going to sum this up. Again, sorry for doing all these talking head videos. I wish I was just out flying, but the weather has not been cooperating. I'm hoping I'll find a break in it and I can get out there and do something for fun and make a better video of some adventure of some type. So you guys know the drill. Like this video and come be my wingman if you haven't. Hit that subscribe button and join in the adventures. And we will catch you guys on the next one.